Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to kick off today's presentation on pop art in cinema. Today, we'll explore how colors, icons, and visual innovation have shaped the way films reflect and influence our culture. From Warhol's factory to today's screens, pop art has revolutionized cinema's visual language, making it bold, ironic, and surface-focused. So, let's dive in and discover this fascinating intersection of art and film. When we look at this slide, what we're seeing is a fascinating shift that happened between the late 1950s and early 1960s. During this period, the world really started to resemble a giant billboard. Think about it: illuminated signs, soup cans, comic strips, star faces, and corporate logos all became part of our daily visual landscape. These images weren't just advertisements. They started to form a new kind of iconography that we see everywhere. This era marked a change in art, too. Art no longer solely looked to ancient myths or classical themes. Instead, it began reflecting the vibrant colors and imagery of mass culture, which was becoming more dominant. Now, let's talk about some of the pop art pioneers. Andy Warhol famously painted Campbell's soup cans, but what's really interesting is that he treated these everyday objects with the reverence of Renaissance Madonnas. It was a way of elevating commercial products to the level of fine art. Then Roy Lichtenstein, who took comic strips and transformed them into large-scale, monumental frescoes. His work made the everyday comic strip feel grand and significant. And we have Cleese Oldenburg, who took common objects and made them gigantic, turning the mundane into something extraordinary. All of these artists were blurring the boundaries between high art and popular culture, which ties back to our overall theme of how reality and images started to merge during this period. So, here we see Hollywood taking a bold turn with what we call the Technicolor explosion. This was when filmmakers began using saturated, vibrant colors to transform every frame into something visually striking. Colors like red lipstick, yellow taxis, and the bright blue skis of studios became iconic symbols of America's visual identity. It wasn't just about realism anymore. It was about creating a bold, almost artificial aesthetic that captured attention. Moving on, Hollywood also started to draw inspiration from the world of advertising. Directors looked to billboards, magazine covers, and even the earliest music videos as sources of visual influence. These mediums were all about eye-catching, highly stylized images, and filmmakers began adopting that same approach to make their movies more appealing and memorable. Then we come to what's called kitsch aesthetics. Hollywood discovered that there's a certain charm in excess, mixing high and low tastes, irony and artifice. It's about embracing the spectacle, the flamboyance, and even the exaggerated. As one famous quote puts it, "What is beautiful is not what is true, but what is photogenic." This perfectly sums up the shift toward valuing visual appeal and style over strict realism or traditional notions of beauty. All of these points tie into a broader theme of the era. Hollywood was moving toward a more stylized, visually provocative form of storytelling that emphasized spectacle and artificiality. This was a revolutionary change that reflected both technological advances and shifting cultural tastes. Warhol's factory was really a space where cinema was transformed into a kind of empty mirror. It's fascinating how he approached film, seeing it not as storytelling, but as a reflection of reality itself. Take Sleep, for example, from 1963. It's 5 hours and 20 minutes of John Giorno just sleeping. What's striking is that every image is given the same weight. There's no hierarchy, no editing to make it more interesting. It challenges us to see all moments as equally significant. Then there's Empire from 1964, which is 8 hours of the Empire State Building at sunset. No narrative, no commentary, just pure, unfiltered reality. It's almost like a meditative experience, asking us to observe without interpretation. And Chelsea Girls from 1966 uses split-screen chaos, 2 projectors running different scenes side by side, creating a voyeuristic window into people's lives. It's less about a story and more about the raw, simultaneous experience of different perspectives. All of these works connect to Warhol's core philosophy. There is nothing behind it. Everything is in front. It's about surface, not hiding deeper meanings but being the meaning itself. The film becomes a mirror, reflecting the world exactly as it is, without layers of interpretation. This idea really challenges us to rethink what cinema can be, less about storytelling and more about showing us what's already there. Let's take a closer look at some key figures in European pop cinema, starting with Jean-Luc Godard. His film, Pierrot le Fou from 1965, is a vibrant journey along the French coast. The visuals are striking. Think primary colors and scenes that feel like living paintings. Every shot is carefully saturated, creating a bold, almost surreal atmosphere. The dialogues are playful and bizarre, often referencing advertising and consumer culture. Godard uses these pop aesthetics not just for style, but to deconstruct and critique the very culture they represent from within. Now, turning to Michelangelo Antonioni and his film Blow Up from 1966. Here, the focus shifts to perception and reality. The story revolves around a photographer who captures what might be a crime, then obsessively enlarges the photos. But as he zooms in more and more, he actually begins to see less. This highlights that reality can be an aesthetic illusion. What we perceive might not be the true story. Both directors challenge us to rethink how images and reality interact, fitting into the broader theme of how pop culture and visual style influence our understanding of the world. The 80s marked a pivotal shift with what we can call a synthetic imaginary. One of the most defining aspects was the MTV revolution that began in 1981. Music videos didn't just promote songs anymore. They became a new form of visual storytelling that transformed pop aesthetics into a universal language. Artists like Madonna, Bowie, Michael Jackson, and Prince weren't just musicians. They became global icons thanks to this new visual culture. Then, we have the influence of films like Blade Runner from 1982. It presented a futuristic Los Angeles that blended noir elements, cyberpunk themes, and neon-lit cityscapes. The visual collage in Blade Runner is fascinating because every image almost quotes another, creating a layered, textured world that feels both familiar and entirely new. Moving to fashion, the era saw a shift where clothing became more than just practical. It was a form of cinema itself. Films from this period are filled with designer clothes, logos, and bright colors, turning fashion into an aesthetic object. For instance, American Gigolo epitomized this idea, where elegance and desire are not just themes but visual markers that define the era. All of these elements, music videos, futuristic films, and fashion, interconnect to create a vibrant, synthetic imaginary that profoundly shaped the cultural landscape of the 80s. Let's take a closer look at Quentin Tarantino's unique approach to culture and how he crafts a distinct remix of ideas and styles. In Reservoir Dogs from 1992, we see characters who seem to live entirely inside the world of movies. They quote old westerns and talk about pop songs as if they are sacred texts, which really blurs the lines between film, music, and cultural mythology. Moving to Pulp Fiction in 1994, Tarantino introduces nonlinear editing, creating a story that jumps around in time, which keeps us on our toes. The film is also known for its hypersaturated colors and absurd, sharp dialogue. The famous Travolta and Thurman dance scene, for example, mixes nostalgia, kitsch, and irony, showing how Tarantino layers different cultural references to evoke emotion and humor simultaneously. Then, in Kill Bill from 2003-04, Tarantino crosses genres like a museum of the imaginary, combining cartoons, Japanese martial arts, Bruce Lee references, blood, and irony all in one film. What's clear is that Tarantino's work demonstrates that pop culture is our visual alphabet. It's how we communicate and understand the world visually. And Tarantino, through his films, has essentially written the grammar of this visual language, shaping how we interpret and remix pop culture today. Let's look at the new millennium, where nostalgia and hyperreality have become central themes in contemporary filmmaking. First, we have Wes Anderson, whose style is instantly recognizable. He uses geometric compositions, vibrant color palettes, and symmetrical framing to create a visual world that feels both whimsical and meticulously crafted. Think of the Grand Budapest Hotel. Its signature powder pink, raspberry red, and lilac tones evoke a sense of visual memory, almost like stepping into a dream or a nostalgic past. Next, Sofia Coppola brings a different flavor. Her work often features neon lights, pastel suites, and electronic music, creating a dreamy, almost surreal atmosphere. When she portrays historical figures like Marie Antoinette, she reimagines them as contemporary icons, highlighting the glamour, but also the emptiness behind it. This approach emphasizes how nostalgia can sometimes mask a sense of superficiality or longing for a past that perhaps never truly existed. Finally, Greta Gerwig's Barbie, 2023, encapsulates this era perfectly. The film uses pastel colors, plastic sets, and a self-aware, meta-narrative style. It's not just about playing with dolls, it's about making the doll conscious of her own image, turning the concept of hyperreality into a commentary on identity and perception. All these examples demonstrate how modern films blur the line between reality and fantasy, creating immersive worlds that are both nostalgic and hyper-real, mirroring our own experiences in a culture saturated with images and memories. Let's explore the future of the image with what I like to call pop vision. First, we have the idea of the infinite screen. Imagine having cinema in your pocket with a continuous scroll of images and videos, like Instagram filters turning reality into a playful material to be decorated and reshaped. It's about breaking down the boundaries between what is real and what can be styled or enhanced digitally. Next, we see AI as an artist. Artificial intelligence now generates stunning images and even writes screenplays. It's a realization of Andy Warhol's famous idea of, "I want to be a machine," blurring the lines between human creativity and machine-generated art. AI is becoming a true collaborator in the creative process. Then there's VR immersion. Virtual reality is transforming images into habitable environments. Think of advertisements or music videos you can actually walk into, experiencing them as if they were physical spaces. It's about creating endless, immersive worlds that redefine how we engage with visual content. Finally, the concept of a global language. Pop culture, with its vivid colors, short slogans, and iconic images, becomes a universal form of communication. No matter where you are, these symbols can transcend language barriers and connect people around the world through shared visual expressions. All these points tie into a broader theme. The future of images is interactive, immersive, and universally accessible, transforming how we create, share, and experience visual culture. So, here we see how pop art has really shaped our understanding of imagery in cinema and beyond. It's not just about copying reality, but about creating new meanings through images. Starting in the 1960s, artists like Warhol and Lichtenstein transformed ordinary objects and images into art, showing us that everyday visuals could carry profound cultural messages. Then, in the 1980s, we saw an explosion of pop culture through MTV and music videos, introducing synthetic aesthetics that blurred the lines between art and commercial media. Moving into the 2020s, pop culture is everywhere. Every scroll on social media, every filter, every meme. Pop has become our condition, shaping how we see and interact with the world daily. Andy Warhol famously said that in the future, everyone would be famous for 15 seconds, and now, that's become the average time we spend scrolling through content. Pop art hasn't ended. Instead, it's become the lens through which we view everything, cinema, reality, and ourselves. It's really embedded in our everyday experience, constantly influencing our perception and identity.